Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today I am privileged to be joined by Rabbi Chaim Aryeh Zev Ginzberg, prominent Rav and the author of a brand new ArtScroll book, Rays of Hope. Thank you, Rabbi Ginzberg, for being here.
Pleasure, honor.
It's an honor to finally have you here. And as we were schmoozing before this conversation, I'm actually surprised that with all your copious writings over the years, that you never put out a book yet. And here's your inaugural ArtScroll volume. So it's an honor that the book is coming out, a book full of great chizuk and stories and some of your personal story, which we'll get into. What prompted you at this juncture to finally say, you know what, it's time to put out a book?
So I'll tell you, it was really never had a machshava, a thought to do a book like this. I guess the history of it is years ago, many years ago, I once submitted an article in, I think it was the first time I actually wrote something to submit it, and I submitted it into Jewish Observer. And it was a thing about the Scud Wars and Saddam Hussein. I had some thoughts. I sent it to him, and Mr. Wolpin, who I knew very, very well, sent it back to me. And with a comment, he sent me back in the mail, and with a note on it, I'm not marking it up, making comments, because it's really not for print. It's not something that we're going to run. It's a lot of ideas that not presented well and not for publication. So that kind of, I thought, put an end to my career. Mm-hmm. And then something happened. It was maybe a year or two later, and I was so troubled by it. And I just sat down, came home, it was a chas, and I came home, sat down, and I took up and I started writing. And that was really the first thing that I had published, an article. And what moved me, was at that time, was a terrible time. It was an intifada going on in Eretz Yisrael. And it was, I remember in March before Purim, and there was buses after buses, Rahman, being blown up, and Yidden were dying left and right. It was just beyond comprehension how tragic of a time it was. And I was at a chasana, and there were a lot of, sitting at a table of very, very prominent people, community-minded people, whatever, and news came, and this is before, there was no news, there was no yeshiva world, there was no WhatsApp, there was nothing, it was many years ago. And someone just had heard that there was, unfortunately, another bus blew up. And many people were killed and injured. And I was like, so I saw like a reaction, like it was at the table, like terrible to hear. And then someone said, I heard 22 people. And the other person said, no, I think it was 25. And they brought out the main course. And I saw one individual there, I won't mention his name, who is such a community-minded person, and I have such an incredible respect for him. I saw him like he was about to eat, and the news came, and he took it, and he put it on his fork, and he just pushed his plate away. How am I going to eat now? And then someone else was sitting at the table, and I didn't just realize what he was saying. Like he says, "Oh, I think I heard there's 25 people. Oh, this filet, it's great. This filet mignon looks great." And then I realized there's something wrong with us. There's something wrong with us. I was so troubled by it. I went home, I sat down, took a bath, and I started writing an article. Uh-huh. And I wrote an article at the time. I still remember, it was terrorism, sugar cubes, and filet mignon. And the concept was that terrible things are happening, and we just don't connect the dots. We don't let it go into our neshamas. And the sugar cubes was something that Rav Shneur Kadla Zichrono Livracha told me years earlier. I was flying back from Eretz Yisrael, and he was there, and I sat down next to him, and he was telling me, and I remember I asked him, tell me things about your father that not everyone knows, that only a son knows, not things that everybody knows about Rabbi. He told me some incredible things, but and he started talking about his mother, and he told me that all the years during the war, his mother had a sweet tooth, and she always loved to have her tea with a sugar cube in her mouth. They used to do that in Lita. And she refused to put anything in her mouth during all those years of the war going on. Did it make a difference to anybody? Did it help anybody? It was just something she took on. I was very moved by that story. So I wrote that story in the article, terrorism, filet mignon, and sugar cube and filet mignon. And I sent it off to Nissan Walpin, Chanoch Jeger. And I get a call from him a few days later. I got your I got your article, and I said, oh, he's going to say it again, and he said, I'm using it, and it's going to cover story in this coming month.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was the cover story. And
Do you remember what year that was?
it was in the 80s, 86 maybe, 87, that's when the fight was going on. And it wasn't that, wow, it's a cover story, but the fact that afterwards, so many people, told me afterwards that they were moved by it. They changed their huggers. And there's such an extent, by the way, that we're talking about how many years later, almost 30 years later, and I was just now in Colorado, and someone walked over to me and said to me, there was just a terrible accident in Israel. There was a car accident, and it was, 2 people lost their lives. He says, I just want you to know that I am not eating tonight. I'm not going to the Viennese table. I'm not having dessert. I said, well, why are you telling me this? Because of what you wrote, the sugar
Really?
chips. It's how many years later?
You wrote 35 years ago.
And
Wow.
it meant something. So after I wrote that, and then I wrote another, and he called me to write another, and he would call me up, can you speak about this topic? I think it's an important topic. And I started doing more.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never writing, I'm going to publish this. It was always when something hit me, emotional, something that I felt needed to be said, that I heard from the Gedolim, I heard from a Rebbeim, that I just needed to share.
Let's go back for a second before we get into your rabbinic career and writing. You mentioned Rabbeim, people who influenced you. Where did you grow up? Who were the influences in your younger years?
Well, my father, obviously, Zechron Levrach, was the greatest influence. He was Rabbi Shul also, but besides that, he was spent most of his life, over 60 years, as my Rebbe, the Rosh of Chavetz Chaim of Henoch Leibowitz, Zechron Levrach. He was his right hand, running the yeshiva Chavetz Chaim, and that was
Your father was administrator?
My father was administrator, executive vice president was his name, and he was involved in everything that the yeshiva was doing and growing, the building of the yeshiva over the years, helping the yeshiva move from Brooklyn to Queens, to Forest Hills, and then from there, the yeshiva spent many decades there until they moved to the new campus in Huron Hills, where they are now. And Yeshiva had no children, so no biological children. He had obviously every all the Talmidim. I felt like a child of his. My father, therefore, did whatever a child would do for him. Yeshiva took him to doctors. He wasn't well, and whatever needed to be done, his personal finances, anything that had to be done, in Yeshiva's life, in Yeshiva's growth of the yeshiva, my father was involved in it. If I was involved, make sure that the Kol people and the Rebbeim got paid, but it was always left that 2 people never got paid. It was my father and Rav Henoch. That was the connection, the relationship. So I grew up in that home. Yeshiva babysat me, in times that my parents and father would go away for traveling for the yeshiva. I stayed by Yeshiva's house. He would take me to carpool. He would take me to school. So that was, I guess, my greatest influence in my life, and many Rebbeim.
And you learned to Chavetz Chaim yourself?
Chavetz Chaim all the years, and I got smicha from there. And Baruch Hashem, my oldest son just got smicha from there now,
really?
Next generation. Wow. And my son-in-law, Rabbi Chaim is actually doing my father's job. He's now running the administration yeshiva.
Wow.
He's the right hand of Rabbi Harris, who's now who's the Talmud that took over the yeshiva. So very much, yeshiva is affiliated. It's in our blood. It's in my blood, and that's been my whole life.
Growing up, as you're going through the yeshiva system, what did you envision yourself doing?
Well, the yeshiva is yeshiva's entire life, following his father's footsteps, which is following the Alto Sabot Gezdera, was that you train the Talmidim not just to learn and become Talmidei Chachamim, but to go out and share with Klal Yisrael. And yeshiva is known for that. The Chavetz Chaim, for the size of the yeshiva it is, it has branches all over the country and all over the world.
Sure.
And they trained. This year alone, another, I think, 25 fellows went out to different, most of us, and started most of those, or took existing, jobs in existing most of those. But that was kind of in my blood, in my DNA. But at the same time, I saw the struggles the yeshiva had financially. I saw the struggles that many of the Talmidim had, both personally and professionally, going out there. And I felt that that's also a side of life that needs to be, developed. And I said I want to do both, and I want to try to develop a business sense as well. And my Rebbe Zichrono Livracha said to me, many times in the early years, you can't do both. You can't do both because you have to give it your all. To be successful, you have to give it your all, and you can't give it your all to two different worlds. You can't do it. And I guess a little youth and a little bit. I'll show you I could do it, and I kind of tried to be in both worlds a little bit. And I guess the greatest thing that Rosh ever told me was it came to me. Rosh used to come to me for Shabbos, always once a year, twice a year. When I was a Rav already in different communities, he would come to me. And one time I was taking him home Matzah Shabbos and to Queens, and I was driving him home, and I got into the house, and I was about to open the door, and he took my hand, and he held my hand in a minute, and he said, "I guess you can."
Really?
Yeah. And
wow.
that was something
that's quite a haskama.
I never forgot that. I never forgot that that now clearly does not mean that I could have accomplished a lot more if I put everything in one one focus.
Area.
But
what was your, let's say on the business side, what was your business endeavor when you were
went into
younger?
the real estate world, a little bit investments and with a few good people who allowed me to spend my time doing what I needed to do for Klal Yisrael, both in the shul and giving lectures and shiurim and traveling. To do that, I used to go very often to different communities to travel and speak, and be going the next week I'm traveling to another city to speak on Shabbos. So I could never have done that if I didn't have a tremendous siyata d'shmaya and also a support group of people who wanted me to do this.
So this is a very relevant topic that you're bringing up of working and learning and fusing the two, Torah and your umnus, and many of our viewers would love to hear that perspective. Like you said, you felt that it's not mutually exclusive, and as your yeshiva gave you a haskama that somehow you pulled it off. With the wealth of experience that you have juggling the two, what practical advice would you give to the young people watching and listening, who themselves, everyone wants to taste Torah and also be able to be mefarnes themselves b'derech kavod? Very often it is very hard to do the two. What's your perspective on that for other people?
Number one, you need incredible siyata d'shmaya, and even though my yeshiva originally saying you can't do both, he wanted you gotta focus, but he encouraged me a lot, and you always have to have someone that you miyayitz with and speak to. One of the things that I thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu every day for, I was zocha, maybe because of influence of a particular Rebbe when I was a young, maybe 13, 14, to develop a kesha with the Gedolim. And I mean the Gedoli Adar. And I had access or I developed access to many of them. And where I would go in daily and had a Seder weekly with many of them. I learned every Matzah Shabbos Rabbi Yasha for 13 months.
Really? Wow. What did you learn with Rabbi Yasha?
I present shilas to him and present shilas to him.
I know you were very close to Rabbi Chaim as well.
Chaim, I've gone to Chaim for decades, way before it became popular. Every single Friday, Rav Scheinberg, every single Rav Chaim Pinchas was one of the Racha, and it just developed many. I used to go to Rav Shach all the time. I was Zocha at two Shabbosim, 2 Friday nights to sit with Rav Shach, just Rav Shach and myself at his table in his home. After his Rebbetzin was Nefteris. So and it would be have this opportunity. Rav Shlomo Zalman and Rav Yaakov. There were several people who used to drive Rav Yaakov all the time. I was one of the people on the list that would get called to drive him, and it would and it was just an incredible Rav David Feinstein all the time. It was a tremendous limud and lesson, and keeps you in focus, keeps you in check, and you can ask what you have in hashkafah and halachas, and it keeps you in a certain perspective, because you can get caught up in anything that you do, and try to juggle both. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes something has to give, but if you surround yourself with a group of people who appreciate what you're doing and value it. And I remember when partner Ohel Sarala, who passed away, he would always tell me that the more you do, the better I think it's good for our shutfist. The more, and he was, constantly, like, you don't have to come to this meeting, you don't have to come, you do what you have to do, go give a share, do right. And it was that kind of ability, is that kind of opportunity creates so that's what I...
Actually sounds quite exceptional. I don't think that's standard procedure, to be able to have that type of shutfus with someone who allows you to engage in your avodas hakodesh while also being an equal partner in whatever the business endeavors were.
Right.
That's
I had
really
two
remarkable.
partners, and both of them were incredibly generous when it comes to that. I did my part. I was at Cedarhurst to do certain things that they couldn't do, and that, and Baruch Hashem, it worked. And
so, at what point here you're juggling, you're learning and you're growing and your business? At what point did you get involved in the Rabbanos?
So it's something that I always, really wanted to do. Many of my chaverim, became rebbeim, principals or rebbeim in elementary school or high schools. The classroom setting was not for me. I knew that it would be something I could never do. I love people. I'm good with people, and I care about people, and I like to help people. And I felt that would be something that I want to do. Now again, in Rabbanos, it's hard. Many chaverim mine went out of town to the smallest little communities to start. That's how you start. I didn't want to do that. The fact that I had a little bit of independence because I had panasa from a different source, I felt that I had flexibility to do what I want to do.
Right.
So I stayed in Queens. At my first stella was in Hillcrest, where actually with a small group of Balabat, I opened up my own shul, and I was able to maintain it myself. I didn't have to worry that, how am I going to put food on the table if I had. And I used to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm doing for you, you do for me. You take care of me, and I'm going to take care of your children. And it gave me a chance to really work hard and develop new programs and new activities without having to worry about, how am I going to pay for the food this Shabbos. Right. And that gave me really a sense of freedom. I felt, I was at an age, I was in the mid-40s, and I said that I felt that I couldn't accomplish anything more there. I felt the community had hit its peak, and it was time to, I want to do more. I want to accomplish more. And I relocated to the Five Towns. And again, there, a small group of people, but it was my own. I said, I want to do my own thing. And I started at my own shul.
That's Chaim Torah Center?
Chaim Torah Center. And the one I had in Hillcrest, I named it Rav Moshe. I was very close to Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe was just nifter a year or two before. So I named it Rav Moshe. It's still called Rav Moshe Torah Institute. It's still the name of Rav Moshe. And when I moved to here, Five Towns, I called it Chaim Torah Center. And they're already almost 25 years.
Wow.
And semi-retired. I brought my son-in-law in to do the heavy lifting now. And I was able to from there branch out and do other things as well. And so there's an interesting, this book, I published a sefer 35 years ago called The Shalosh Divrei Chachamim, where it was a collection of at the time 1,000 psukim, both halakas and hashkafahs that I heard personally from the Gedolim that I interacted with. And it sold out, like within 2 weeks it was gone. And I didn't let the person reprint it, or the publisher, because I got a lot of comments, a lot of letters. I wanted to redo it. But life got very busy, family and obligations and parnasa in the shul, and I just never had a chance to sit down. Finally now, post-COVID, I said I'm going to do it. And ArtScroll Be'er Shem is going to be publishing a much larger version with over 2,000 shilas.
In addition to your new book, this is a separate volume.
Separate book that will come out in Hebrew. And will be coming out by Shem Chanukah time. And it's a
that's
great
very
project.
Exciting.
Very excited about this, because this is something that's going to it's going to really, I really believe it's going to take the yeshiva world by storm, because people are going to see things that they've never heard before, things, the shilas that I asked and some others asked that are not printed, that are not published. And I think it's everyone I speak to about it is very excited about it. I'm looking forward to it, you know. But this particular book is a different nature. And as I started saying before, you know, I started writing articles. It was never about writing in articles. I wasn't on the payroll of Mishpach or Yated or the other publications. It was just when something hit me, something moved me, and that's something I wanted to share, I'd write it. And I wrote it from the heart. I would write from the heart. And I wrote a lot in the Five Towns newspaper, and in Yated, and then Mishpacha became a very big vehicle for me. Sure. And then when something would happen, I still remember that I got a call from at the time Shirley Basu, was that time one of the head editors of Mishpacha, called me up. He said they had a terrible, terrible tragedy of the three Shiva Bakram, the young Bakram that were kidnapped and Haman's son killed. They were missing for 2-3 days. And the whole Eretz Yisrael was just, and they said someone has to write something to Machazek, and they turned to me to do it, and it was a challenge. I took it as a challenge, and I sat down and said, okay, what would I want? What would I want? What would I want to hear Chizuk? What would I want? And there's not a lot out there, and I really sat down and I wrote from the heart, and it had tremendous results. People called me that they, you know, it talked to them and it helped them get through this. One of the relatives of one of the boys called me up that they read it.
Really?
And they read it and they were so, you know, touched them, and they brought it to the Shiva house. They brought it to the family to read. So I saw that there's something that's needed, a void. And then really what happened was that, you know, Akash Baruch Hu, you know, sent my family a lot of challenges. And
I was going to say that, you know, a perfect segue. Among the many things you've been through in your life, probably two of the most seminal moments. One was the tragic ptira of your daughter,
yes,
which, as hard as it was for you and your Rebbetzin, you took that challenge with tremendous fortitude and emunah and strength and turned it into something positive, which I want you to talk about, because I myself am so inspired. I know you're reaching a big milestone with that shortly. And the other seminal moment was really not that long ago, was during COVID, when you yourself faced really a life and death challenge with your own health, and famously added a name. Rabbi Chaim Aryeh gave you that name, Chaim. So talk about both of those, which really, you're moving through life, you're doing your thing, and then life throws you curveballs.
Right. And
how you dealt with those.
So I would tell you, it's, I always thought that, when growing up, I had my Rebbe Moshe of Hanoch Jeger, and whenever there were difficulties, I always would go to him and always knew how to machazek me. And he was no longer, and my father was no longer. And, my daughter was a miracle baby, and she was just the life of our family. She was the life of a friend. She was such a live wire.
What do you mean by miracle baby?
When she was born, she had something that affected her liver, which is something that's not really noticed until babies and children after 2-3 months, they just don't wake up. And it was all because Baruch Hu Basher was in a certain hospital, and there's a certain doctor that had a certain experience, and he thought maybe it would be this thing, a rare thing, and he was right, and we found the specialist, and my daughter Sarala, Allah Hashem was her name, she was at the time the youngest liver transplant patient in America. She was 2 weeks old.
Wow.
12 days old, and she had a liver transplant. And they told us at the time that she'll be in the hospital for the first year of life. She'll be in the hospital. She was 30 days old, and we took her home. And she had an incredible childhood, She was a Pied Piper of her friends. My house became like she was the youngest. My boys were in yeshiva, and she was the youngest, so she had the free run of the house, and every Shabbos was another Shabbaton of her friends, and camp friends and school friends, and she was just an incredible child, and gave us a lot of joy, and I'm so proud of her. She had challenges. She had to take medicine every day, anti-rejection medicine, and she 2-3 times she had to go into a hospital and miss the friend's party because she had to be, to watch her. But this wasn't unexpected, and a few months before she was nifteris when she was a little bit right after her 17th birthday. So for about 6-7 months before, things started unraveling, and we didn't expect it to happen. We thought that she'll come through, but Kosh Baruch Hu, this is what he dealt with, and we would do it all over again. We had an incredible schus of having her as a child, and she was, my whole family feels that way, her siblings feel that way. But I remember after, it was interesting when she was nifteris. It was a very challenging time for our family because my son was getting married. Rabbi David Paskin, that, of course, when you're going to bring it to Eretz Yisrael, right, you're going to bring it that she was going to be buried in Har Zesim. I had bought plot in Har Zesim. But if I would have gone with her and come back right after the Kfura and Kasitchev, my family, I would have come back on a Wednesday morning, and my son was getting married Wednesday night.
Oh, wow.
So both Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky and Rabbi Feinstein said, we cannot I wanted to postpone the wedding a little bit. They both said, you can't postpone the wedding. But how can I come back the morning? And he says, you're not going to go. You won't go. You sent. So my son-in-law, who lives in Israel, had come already for the wedding, had come to join us, for the wedding. And my brother-in-law, both of them flew back with the Aron and came back 2 days later. But so I got up from Shiva a day before. So that was challenging, but like I said, you could do anything that Kosh Baruch Hu knows nisyonos, knows who to give it to, and we went to that wedding like we're marrying off our child with great simcha, understanding that what we dealt with, and then we went after Sheva Brachos. My wife and I flew to Eretz Yisrael and went to the kever, and then I told my wife we're going to get chizuk from somebody. We needed chizuk, so we went to everybody. Went to all the Gedolim, the Litvish Gedolim, the Rosh Hashivas, the Mukabalim, the Chassidish Gedolim. We literally went from person to person. And they did their best. And I think Aaron Leib Steinman told me the most important thing. He told me, like, when we were sitting, I need Chizuk in the Rishiv, and he knew me. I'd gone to many times, and he said, Kenisht, I can't. I was like, I'm not able to. I said, if you can't, who can? You're 100 years old. Who's going to give chizuk if you can't? So remember, he tapped me on my heart and he says, you give yourself chizuk. You'll find something, I'll give you chizuk. And he was right. I found something that talked to me, and the sefer that just happened to have picked up. And I had written about it, so everyone knows about it, but I've spoken about it also. But just, I guess, say it quickly. But it was, I was saying Kaddish for my daughter, and I was in Israel a week later, and I went to a place to daven mincha, and it was waiting for mincha to start, and it was two sfarim on the table. It was a Noam Elimelech, which I never saw before. I never looked inside. I'm not a Hasidic background. And there was a Reishis Chachma, which is a Kabbalah they could say also. I don't. But I happened to pick it up, and I opened it up, and it was Pashat Tzava, and it said something incredible. It said there that, it quoted the Zohar, that every kli in the Mishkan is connected to Eivah Shalatam. And the Aron, which was the center of the Beis HaMikdash, everything that revolves around the Aron, is connected to the heart of a person. Everything revolves around the heart. Aron's connected to the heart. And I saw that, I just said, wow, like something came up in my head, a light bulb went on my head. I said, they all asked the question that, in the Aron, what was in the Aron? The Gemara says in Masechah Shabbos, the luchos and the shivri luchos. And the question begs, why is shivri luchos? I'm not sure I asked the question. He asked the question. Shivri luchos broke, the osios went up to Shemayim, it was just stone. Like, why should that go? We had the real luchos in there. Why did you need the pieces of it? So there are many answers to this question. I thought, based on what I saw, maybe that's the answer. Kosh Baruch Hu wanted for Dori Doros to know that the Aron had room for Shivri Luchos and Luchos. The Leiv Shel Adam has room for Shivri Luchos and Luchos together. Both have to be there. Both have room tzad b'tzad. For a person can live his life with simchas and nachas and accomplishments. At the same time, you can have the Shivri Luchos. You can have pain and loss and side by side you could go on.
Wow.
I said, talk to me. I mean, I told Rabbi Chaim and I later the Vart. I love the Vart.
You like the Vart.
Love the Vart. So but it talked to me, and so, but it was something personal. I told my wife, and then it came back. It was 3 months later. There was a terrible tragedy. A carload of five older Hasidic girls, girls in their 20s, who were teachers, who were in the summer vacation, who were traveling a few weeks going in the West Coast. And it was a Friday, they were in the Grand Canyon, they were going to go to LA for Shabbos. And they got to a crossroad, and whatever happened, terrible tragedy, a truck hit them. And it was three girls in Nebuch lost their lives, and one was hurt terribly, and one walked out okay. So the family, I'm close to one of the relatives of one of the girls that passed away. It was Nifteris. And he calls me up, he says, maybe you can help me. It was a few weeks later. This girl's niece was getting married, the oldest grandchild of her parents. She was the youngest in her family. And the grandmother of the Kala, which is the mother of this girl, I'm not going to the wedding. I can't go. I just can't go. How can I go to a wedding? I'm mourning for my daughter. And the whole family was in an uproar. How could she not go? And they tried, nobody. The Kala came, cried to her grandmother. Nothing helped. Is there anything you could do? I said, what can I do with a Hasidic? Later, I got in a car, I drove. I went to her house and knocked on the door. And I shared this thing with her. I said, there's room for you to dance with your granddaughter at the same time as Shivi Lukos of your daughter in your heart. I wished her Mazda, I walked out and I left. I didn't know if I accomplished anything. 2 days later, I get, at night, I'm sitting there in shul, and I get a phone call, and I get a video of the grandmother of this dancing with her granddaughter.
Baruch Hasana.
So it means to talk to her also. So I wrote this up, and I wrote an article in Mishpacha magazine, and I get from all over people telling me how much, like it just got them through some difficult times. So that was why. So I'd write, and I'd write. I felt Chizuk is something. I didn't write because I have a deadline. I can't write because I have to write every week. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. The pressure is immense. I write when something hits me. I feel it's a message.
Maybe that's why it's connecting with people, because whenever you write when you're ready to write, not because you have to write.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Big difference.
Exactly. When something when something hits me, a message, or for Chizuk, that's when I write. So interesting. What happened was that. So Meir's Ladder was a Zechron Livracha, who I love dearly. So he loved my articles, and every time he would see me, I loved it. I cut it out. I have it on my desk, and I show it to someone. You got to put it in a book. I never had intention to put it in a book. I wrote, it's an article. An article is not a book. An article is something. And he would, a number of times he said it to me, and I just didn't take him seriously. He passed away. Your brother Chaim Aryeh, who I love dearly. Always, every time you have to, and he would read something. It was fantastic. You have to do it. And every time he saw me, he would push me. Still, just wasn't something that on my plate. Not on my plate. It wasn't on my bucket list of things to do. And then I got sick. COVID came, and I got very, very sick. And to the extent was where it was Erev Pesach of that year, the 2020, where my wife got a call to come down to the hospital that I had 3 to 5 hours left. And she came to say goodbye to me. And Akash Baruch Hu, not for any of my susim, but there's the tefillos of Klal Yisrael and my family. So I was zocheh to a tremendous nezgoli. Like I said, there's no chance. They wanted to plug out the machines and this and that, and then when we put pressure, we got someone to put pressure on the hospital not to plug out the machines. But the head doctor in my case told Baruch Bender that who was involved with my case. He said to him, "Okay, my hands are tied. I can't. They told my family we need the machine for someone who has a chance to live. He told my wife, your husband has no chance to live." Yeah. But he said to him, "Okay, so I can't unplug the machine, but it's not going to make a difference. Like there's just no." So it did, I guess. They decided differently. So when I came home and I was convalescing at home for a while, therapy and getting back to myself, I got a lot of emails from people, texts, emails, WhatsApps, and people tell me how they daven their hearts out for me. Why? Because you wrote an article 2 years ago. It changed my life. You wrote an article, it said I had lost my child. You wrote something, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. But you wrote this, it changed me. When I heard you were sick, I davened my heart out for you. Another person who lost his panasa. He had no panasa, no support. He was literally told me he was thinking of ending his life. And I'd written something about bitachon and emunah, something that was challenging. He says nothing. Whoever I spoke to didn't help. That somehow it talked to me. I said, I davened my heart out for you. I owe you my life. When I started seeing that, I said, if certain people got chizuk from it, then maybe someone else can get chizuk from it. So next time Gedaliah, spoke to me about it, I said, Gedaliah, we have to talk. And I said, how would you do it? How do you do it? An article is not for.
Give an
example. I think the article that Baruch Hu gave me the most, the greatest ability, with ideas in my head and my heart to write, was after the Meron tragedy. After the Meron tragedy, the whole class was reeling, but just reeling from it. And Mishpacha called me up in 5 times paper. What do you tell people? I don't know. Like, how could you? Like, it was just you just sat there. My pen was frozen. How do you write something like this? But I worked on it, and I listened. I davened, and Akash Baruch just put the ideas in my head, and it came out. And it was that. I mean, people just forever just stopped me in the street. I said it gave them ability to get through this. So, but like it was an article for timely. A book is something that in a year, in 2 years, and 5 years from now, 10 years, someone picks up the book.
Exactly.
What happened to Meron? Like, unfortunately, you move on.
Mm-hmm.
So to reconfigure an article of Chizuk to something that's good for a book is beyond my ability, because when you write something, it's very hard for you to take out words and change words. I told Gedaliah it's a problem. So he said, I know the right person. There's one person that's great. There's a woman there at Israel. It's gifted. She's the one for this. Malki Heimowitz. Well, I've seen some of her stuff. I never met her. So I said, let's try. So I took my I have over 350 articles that I had written over the last decades. Many of them are not appropriate. Many of them are spadim for Rav Gadol and Rav Shach and Rav Yashav and Rav Steinberg and people, my Rebbe and my father. These are not for, and then the other things I wrote about, current events type of issues. But so I took out from there all what's called the Chizuk articles. And that was about 140, 150. Then I had to cut that down. I cut it down to about 75. Of the 75, I picked out like 5 things and I sent it to her. This is what I wrote. And let's see what you could do. And a few days later, I got it back, and it was incredible. Like she just realigned a few words, a few sentences.
She's a magician with writing.
Writing. And sometimes she said, I want you, this is what I think needs to be done, but you need to do it because it needs to be your words. So, but I had a direction of like how to, and I did it, and I put the words in. And when I saw the file, I said, you know what, this could work. Mm-hmm. So I sent her, I think it was 75 articles of what I felt the ones of the most chizuk. And then I went to Eretz for Shavuos, and I met with her there. We discussed the project back and forth, and I felt this is a shidduch. This is good. This could work. And I said, let's go ahead. And Gedaliah were on the phone. We got together. We decided we're going to move ahead on this. And she cut it down from 75 because it was too much, to about 65 articles. And each article has a message of chizuk, even though it may have been for a particular event, but it reconfigured to anything that's going on. And including some of the articles personally of things that I went through that other people can get chizuk from. And
it's an interesting thing. I'm listening to you talk about writing articles and getting feedback. I'm just speaking from the writer's perspective. A writer really writes in a vacuum. You sit in your house by a keyboard, and you pour your heart into an article, not knowing the reaction. It's different than public speaking. Public speaking, even though you prepare what you're going to say, but as you speak, you gauge the audience.
Sure.
You get right. There's facial expressions. You could see how you're connecting to your audience in real time.
Right.
A writer is really on their own island. They're writing, knowing little of how people are going to react.
Right.
And very often you can write an article and hear nothing from people sometimes.
Right.
It sounds like you've been blessed uniquely that you really do hear, and I guess this is an affirmation of the effectiveness of your writing, connecting to people, that you hear so much feedback to the articles you write. Obviously, you're connecting, that message is resonating
Right.
with people, but that's a real blessing for a writer to be able to hear from people.
I want to give one example how it showed, like what you're saying. I wrote so sometimes you hear something and you like, wow, this got to go out. People got to hear this. So an example, this goes a number of years ago. It was a woman who, her name is mentioned in the book, I don't mention it now, but a woman had passed away. She had a family of 6 children. She was, I think it was in her 50s, a young woman, unfortunately got sick. My connection to, I really didn't know her at all. My connection to the family was that their oldest daughter and my oldest daughter were seminary roommates together in seminary, became very close friends, and we met at the airport saying goodbye to our kids, and it interacted that way, and it really didn't have any personal connection. So when we heard she passed away, my daughter, and I just was in her time, I said, but you have to go, you have to go. Okay, if you feel I should go, I'm going to go. So I went to the house in Brooklyn, and when I come in, so her husband was sitting shiva, and there was 5 Rabbanim were there. 5 very prominent Rabbanim in Flatbush were there. I happened to be there at the time when I came. I came in, he said, made a seat for me, I sat down, and he says, he said to me, you really didn't know my wife, really. He said, I met her once, that's why I really didn't know her. Mm-hmm. So he said to me, I want to tell you, she was a very simple woman, very simple woman. And then he says, I just want to tell you like a story my wife said, something she said. Our youngest child was just bar mitzvahed, and she kept it from her children. She didn't want anybody to know how sick she was. It was for a few years, she kept it from everybody. That was her anhaga, and that's what, Rabbi Chaim Aryeh approved, that it would be, if that's what you want, it's fine. So it was literally 2 or 3 weeks before she passed away, she called in her son, which is bar mitzvah, and she says, I want to tell you, I'm not well, I'm very sick, I don't have much more time. And the son, like, of course, any someone here, you imagine, he said to me, like, Mommy, why you? Why you? Why you, Hashem? Why you? Question that every child would ask. And every person asks that question when something happens. So she looked at the child in the eye and she said, why? I want you to know, when I first got the diagnosis a few years ago, that was my question, why me? And then I started thinking. And I said, I was the first one of my whole class to get engaged. I didn't ask Hashem, why me? Right. First one to get married, didn't ask why me. I was the first one of all my friends to have a child. I had 6 healthy children. Never asked why me. Mm-hmm. When I held my first grandchild in my arm, I didn't ask Hashem, why me? So I'm not going to start now asking why me. She just shared something his wife said. I looked around the room, and I'm like, okay. I said, that was the most profound thing I ever heard in my life. Mm. A simple woman. She was a giant. I went home, I sat down, and still old school, I didn't use a computer, I still do a pen and paper. Sat down and I wrote an article called Why Me? And I wrote this whole thing up. And added a few stories, a Gedolim, whatever. And then I called up the daughter, who I knew, and I said, listen, I wrote an article. I don't need to put a name in it. But it's much more real if I would use the name of the person. But I don't want to do anything. She's still elderly parents. Mm-hmm. If any of the children, or your father, or your grandparent, anybody says any hakpada, of course I won't use it. But I want you to see it. I sent it to her. I emailed it to her. She called me back a few days later. The whole family saw it, and they feel it would be such a schush for the mothers and shama, her mother's and shama. She wouldn't love me. Use it as is. And I put it in mishpacha. I wrote it in mishpacha. So 2 things came out of that. First of all, a few months later, I get a call from a woman from Muncie, a Swedish woman who I don't know. I just want to tell you, I want to thank you gave me back my sister. What? How did I give you back your sister? But it tells me that it's only, her parents died young, it's only her and her sister. They kind of raised each other. They're 2 years apart, she's older. And my sister lives a block away from me, and our lives are together, we're like one. My sister, unfortunately, lost my niece 4 years ago. It broke her. She had other children. It just broke her. She has not left her house since that time. Her kids are growing up with just a father without a mother. She can't be a mother. She can't be a wife. She can't be a sister. We tried everything. Rabbanim went to her, doctors. I just can't get her. We can't get her out. I'm making a wedding, my first child. And I went to my sister, you're my only blood relative. She said, I can't come. I'm not coming. I'm going to a wedding of my own child, or my own sister can't come. My whole simcha is different. I read your article. I took the article and I went over to my sister's house. I walked in and she was sitting in her bedroom. I put it down on a night table and I said, I want you to read something. And I left. It was assumed it would go the same way as all the other things that we tried. A few hours later, my bell rings. I open my door. My sister's there. She says, "Come, let's go. I need a dress for the wedding. Let's go shopping." My daughter got married last night, and my sister sat next to me because I have no mother. My sister sat next to me at the Kabbalah's Pana. He says, "I need to thank you." I had no words, but it wasn't like a pat on the back. It was like, Kadosh Baruch Hu. I heard it. I saw it. I felt it. This would be Chizuk. Look what it did to one person.
Look at the power of your pen. You look how you mechazik people.
And one of the Rabbanim who was at that room, I saw it at Chassan a few months later. So happened to see, came over to me, Rabbi Ginzberg. I want you to know, I feel like nothing. I said, what do you mean? I was in that room when the husband told us all the story. He went in, a nice story. And look what you did with it.
Wow.
Look what you did with it. I have to listen much more carefully. He said to me, Rav is older than me, I such incredible love for him. But that was it. Then, the final thing on this particular article, it was a few years later, Ms. Mishpacha had their 10th year anniversary. And they put out a thing for what article people felt.
I remember they did like a retrospective. Right.
So I get a call from someone from Mishpacha that they got back, I think it was 6,000 responses to the what do you call it? Over 90% of the responders, 90%, picked this article.
Really? Wow.
One article. So, it's when I hear that, again, it's not true and wow, look what they're not. It was the fact that if there's something that you can do to give a Yid Chizuk.
So talking about giving Yid and Chizuk, before we run out of time, I want you to talk about Ohel Sarala, which is the organization that you spearheaded, Lili Nishmas, your beloved daughter.
Right.
And it's an organization talking about giving Chizuk that's giving Chizuk in a uniquely powerful way. For those who never heard of it, probably not many people, but for those who never heard of it, tell us just what it is and the milestone that we were talking about before that you're about to reach.
So Ohel Sarala is an organization that was founded by Rabbi and Rebbe Shlomo Bachner from Boni Olam, famous leaders in Klal Yisrael. Two
of the most special people in Klal Yisrael.
No question about it. And the third one in that group is my Rebbe, my wife, Ohel Ginzberg, who is basically has taken Ohel Sarala as a life's mission and works on it day and night. And together with the entire staff of Ohel Sarala and Boni Olam has reached incredible. And first, the milestone is, my wife told me that by Rosh Hashanah time, we're going to hit 5,000 engagement marriages in about 6.5, 7 years that we started this thing, which is besides about 1,000 babies born. It's something beyond L'mayla Minat Teva. And it's not surprising because the idea came from Baron Leib Steinman. Now, where did this come from? How did this happen? So it was a few years ago, there's a family in my neighborhood in the 5 towns, an almana that has some older single girls, and they call me for shilas. They always consult me, and I know that when they call me, everything stops. I answer the call, and I'm available for them. They know, my wife knows no matter what I'm doing. So it was in the summertime, and it was the summer after Sarala passed away, a few months later, and we kept saying we want to do something special for her, and I've been in Rabbanis for many years. I've dealt with many families that had tragedies. Always want to do something right away. And I see that they jump on ideas, and by Shloshim it's over.
And then it peters out.
Peters out because it's not sustainable. It has to be something creative, something Klal Yisrael needs. I always tell people, I told my wife, we'll do something, we'll find something. Hashem will send us something that will make a difference. We're not rushing. So it was, we have a place upstate New York, and my wife wanted to go up to the country Thursday night, and I get a call from one of the daughters of this, an older girl, she was in the high 30s. She needs to come talk to me about something very important. I said, wait, I didn't know it's something like right now she wants to come talk to me. I told my wife, I'm sorry, stop packing. We're not going tonight, I got to deal with this. And she came over. She came over with another girl, another friend, and she had the following question. She said that they have an older sister, and there's a group of girls, over 20 of them, that are above the age of 35, 36 years old, and obviously struggling with a terrible challenge. But in order to be able to mechazik each other and to live a life of fulfillment, they get together every Shabbos Mevorchim. They have a Shabbaton, usually at their house. And the girls come and they bring, and they say Torah, they sing mirrors together. They have a great time. It gives them chizuk for them. So that particular Shabbos, before there was a Friday night, they were there, and they had only Shabbos. And one of the girls had mentioned that, based on consultation with her Rav, she knows she's getting married, she knows she's going to find someone, but she understands she's getting older, so she froze her eggs. And that's something that she felt that, the Rav says she should do. So they all started discussing it. Should we do it? Should we not? Well, it's something we should do. So they said, we're going to go ask Rabbi Ginzberg. And whatever Rabbi Ginzberg says, that's what we'll do. So I'm asking on behalf of the whole group. I said, whoa, above my pay grade, very difficult question. And I said, I really don't want to answer the shaila. What I want to do is go to Rabbi Feinstein. I will go to him Sunday personally. I'm not going to do it on the phone. I'm going to go directly. Whatever he tells me, I'll share with you. So fine. That was it. So they left, and we went up to the country. That Shabbos is, we were taking a walk after lunch in the area where I am, which I never do before, but that Shabbos I happen to have done it. And we bump into neighbors of ours. Rabbi Shlomo Bach were taking a walk as well. Someone who I knew from the neighbors, but I never really had interaction with him. And I said, Shlomo, I got to tell you something. You're not going to believe it. Someone asked me a question, because this is his line of work, and it's going to shock you. Mm-hmm. I told him, is it shocking? What do you mean shocking? I do this all the time. I do this for thousands of girls, unfortunately. A tremendous amount. I'll take care of it. Just give my number. I'll take care of it. I was like taking it back myself. I told him, it pains me. I'm so pained by this cry. I was up a whole night. So he says, I want to tell you, I just came from Eretz Yisrael. And Aryeh Zev told me something incredible. He shared it with me. A passing conversation. He says, I walked into Rabbi Aryeh Zev, and Rabbi Zev, he was very close to him. He helped Rabbi Steinman's family, some of his own children. So he says, hey, Rabbi Shalom, he says, Zwei Sachen lassen mich nicht schlafen. Two things won't let me sleep. So 2 things? All of Klal Yisrael is on your head. What 2 things? 2 things. So many couples say having difficulty, fertility issues, have difficulty having children, and so many older singles. He says, things don't let me sleep. He was quiet for a few minutes, and he says, they really, one could solve the other one. They both could solve each other's problems. Wow, so he taught us how to read a Chumash. He says, Sarah said to Avram, marry Hagar, I'm going to build. What do you mean you'll build? Avram is going to build. Mm-hmm. What does it do with you? No, I'm going to help Avram have a child with Hagar, so then I'm going to be Zoka to have a child as well. Person Mazaka someone else, you'll have a child. You'll even have it first. So if the singles would help, would daven for them, support, and help the couples have children, then they in turn will have children, and they can't have children, not getting married, so therefore they'll get married. Mm-hmm. Just like that. And he said it to me, that was Rosh Hashanah, said, nice thought, and I walked up. It just resonated in my neshama. The whole afternoon, I just was pacing back and forth. I said, what an incredible mashava. I got it. This is what I'm going to do. I called the Shalom back there, right at the shop. I said, where are you? I just made Abdullah. Come over right now to my unit, right now. He came over. We sat down. We're going to do something together. We're going to start something. I'm going to call Ohel Sarala. Boating Home's going to get involved. We're going to start the process of davening for each other. Mm-hmm. Davening for each other and help support it, give some tzedakah money towards the couples, the treatments of self-fortunate money. And we started an idea how to do it. Names only, no last names only, Hebrew names and mother's name. Mm-hmm. Couple will daven for them, they'll daven for the couple. Let's start this. And again, the power of an article. So we put together an idea how we're going to do it. And I said, what do we do with Sarah? I said, if we can bezoka to have 1 or 2 children born from this, Our daughter was 17, Hashem took her back. She was never zoka to have her own children, her own family. Any child that comes from this thing that we're doing will be considered her children, her legacy. This will be her generations.
Wow.
And if we wanted to, it's worth the whole thing. Let's go for it. So how are we going to kick it off? 2 weeks later, I wrote Mishpach an article called the Hidden World of Shidduchim. That was the title of the article. I introduced this concept. There's a nice readership. The word got out. People started responding. People started calling. Put a website, and it goes respond to an email address, and 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4.
Wow.
And then it started engagement, one baby born, another one. We just have now, just today, I showed me an email of a girl who's 33 years old, and down for a couple, and nothing happening. She gets a phone call that she gets an email from both of them that her couple had a child that she davened for. That afternoon, a shotgun called, I have an idea for you. I thought about it a long time ago, never happened. I mentioned the name to you. That was her chassan. That's who she got engaged to. And we have this happening every single day, all the time. The connections of it. Aaron Leib Steinman's idea. And I said, I gave many a statement for Aaron Leib Steinman in Queens, Chaim in Lakewood, and other places. I said, I have no ability to speak about who he was, what he was. But all I can say is one thing. One little idea that he shared, an idea that was in his head, he shared with someone that took 3 minutes. Look what came out of one little idea. Imagine this.
But again, I think, commenting on what you said before, you could hear an idea and let it go in one ear and out the other, but you and Reb Shlomo together, you took this initiative with your Rebbitzins, and you made an idea into reality, and it's resulted in Chizuk for thousands and thousands of people. Just not only the Yeshuas that they see, but the day-to-day Chizuk that they know that they're partners with someone else who's davening for them, and it's just an uplifting. The whole concept is so uplifting and really changing lives, one single at a time, one baby at a time, one couple at a time. And as we wrap up, I think this book is going to do the same thing, because the stories, the chizuk, you have this ability to relate to people on their level, on a very human level. Sometimes, as writers and speakers, people either speak over their audience or they speak under their audience, where they're not really, reaching them. And you seem to have found that happy medium where you're really talking to them on their level. Any final thoughts, about what you want people to take away from the book, and a final message?
Somebody asked me, when I heard about the book coming out, says, "Oh, what's your goal with the book? Like, how many do you want to sell? Like, what do you want to be? You want to make the New York Times bestseller list? I don't know if they still have New York Times bestseller. I don't even know." But I said, not at all. I have one goal in mind. The book is called Rays of Hope, offering divrei chizuk. If people got chizuk from the articles, my hope and my tefillah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that some Jew, some Yid out there, whoever it is, will pick up that book and be in a situation where he or she will need some chizuk, going through a difficult time. And I discuss in the book many different types of challenges, and pick up and read something that talks to them, and they'll walk out mechuzuk. It's worth all the effort, all the time, and the years of articles, and all worth that if one Jew gets chizuk. And I hope that many will get chizuk from it.
I have no doubt. It's a book about dealing with challenges, but all that means is that it's for everyone, because there's no person who's immune. Everyone's going through some kind of challenge, obstacle on some level. As long as we're alive in this world, that means we are dealing with challenges.
That's true.
And that's why this book is really, it's like a handbook. You took the magic of your articles, and not only do you get one, but you get a whole collection of them. So it's really an amazing collection. And ArtScroll is honored to be the conduit to bring that collection of chizuk to the masses. And my humble bracha, you should continue. Amen. Use your kaiches and your time together with your Rebbitzin to bring chizuk to people, both in happier times and more challenging times, and showing people how to always see the light, the rays of light. Be'ezus Hashem.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you for
very
being
much.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.